Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Cocktails and Conversations with your hosts from the Don't Smudge the Small Stuff podcast, Jamie and Brian. Hi, Jamie.
Hi, Brian.
And we have cocktails. Okay, so before we get started, what cocktail are you having?
This is called a pineapple poltergeist.
I'm having a tequila geist, and I'm having polter wine. Yes,
You're
I'm doing,
popping
I'm
double
doing two. I'm
fisting?
having a cocktail and some wine.
Mm.
Well, I didn't want to have to get up again, so I just have it all ready. So I'm excited because today we have a very special guest, Crystal Anne Compton. She will
Oh,
be
so
joining us to
excited.
talk about, oh, by the way, do you like my background? Poltergeist.
Love your
So
background.
in case you guys have not figured it out, we are going to be talking about poltergeist today. I'm very excited about that. Now, Crystal Anne Compton is a very good friend of mine. I've known her for several years. She is a spiritual teacher. She's an intuitive channel and founder of the Lightshine Lab. It is a growing online community dedicated to spiritual learning, fellowship, and consciousness exploration. She's been an intuitive reader for many years now and offers her expertise as a coach, mentor, channel, and guide. She also has a YouTube channel with hundreds of spiritual and metaphysical educational videos. She travels frequently to host lab meetups, local workshops, spiritual events. She also has the Light Shine Development Circle. It is a sacred place for spiritual seekers to practice giving and receiving readings. The circle is open to all psychics, oracle card readers, mediums, channels, energy healers, Akashic records readers, and any other type of spiritual practitioner who offers their service via a reading style format. And that is https://class.lightshineacademy.com/circle. She is also getting ready to start the Enlightened Entrepreneur. It is an 8-week program. It begins on July 18th, 2021. It is a live online 8-week course specifically designed to teach heart-led practitioners how to launch, establish, and scale their own highly successful spiritual business. And that is https://lightshineacademy.com/the enlightened entrepreneur. How exciting, Jamie.
I don't even know what to say, and that is very uncommon for me. I have been preparing for this interaction for quite some time, and I'm so excited that it's here.
Oh, I am thrilled for you to finally meet here. She has so much information to give on this particular subject and thousands of other ones, millions even, and we'll certainly have many other opportunities to talk about this. But I'm so excited to have her here today so we can kind of talk about poltergeist.
Oh my. Oh,
Okay, so without further ado, why don't I go ahead and bring Crystal Anne Compton on to join us?
come on in.
So excited. Oh my God. Look, look, look. It is Crystal Anne Compton. We're having some technical issues. She's coming. She's there.
Oh God. Okay.
There she is. Crystal Anne Compton.
Hello. Oh my God. I'm so happy to be here.
Oh my God, we're so happy to have you. Crystal, this is Jamie. Jamie, this is Crystal.
Hello.
Heard so many good things about you.
Likewise.
Oh, awesome. Thank you.
It's so exciting. So we just did an intro and talked about the, I don't know, million things that you're doing and up to. So we're very excited about that. And we'll, at the end, give you some opportunity to talk more about that because it is so fascinating.
Great.
But we are so excited. As you can see, my background kind of gave away what we'll be talking about today.
Just a little.
Just a little bit. So they're here.
Yes, they are.
So today we want to talk with you about poltergeists and what they really are. Now, I did a wee little bit of research on poltergeists, and I would just like to share a little bit of what I found. and then we'll kind of get the conversation going.
Sure.
What I found was poltergeist comes from combining two German words, poltern, which means crash, and geist, spirit or ghost. So I thought that was kind of interesting. So in other words, a noisy, unruly ghost or spirit essentially is what it would loosely translate to. But what I thought was interesting is that parapsychologists are sort of not in agreement as to what it is. Some say that it's, unruly ghosts. Some say it's just odd energy, and some just don't know what it is. So I would like to know what you feel and know this phenomenon to be.
Okay.
Let's unpack all of that.
Yeah. I have some personal experience with poltergeistic activity. And then I have like some knowledge around that and study and research and all the things. But I don't believe they are ghosts per se. I don't think they're spirits. They're on the other side and they're knocking around your house. I do think it could be something like noisy energy. But with poltergeist, the thing to know is that the call is coming from inside the house. And what I mean by that is that poltergeists are self-generated, meaning somebody in that house, whether presently or even in the past, because it depends on how much poltergeist activity was in the house, somebody in that house was generating the poltergeist. And it's usually generated based on deep and pervasive emotional or hormonal turmoil. So this is why it's often associated with like teenage or prepubescent girls who are coming into their hormones and they're all nuts and they're all in their emotions and their fifis. And so they're generating all of this energy. And that energy, if you do not address the source of the signal of it, that energy begins to develop. So what we're really talking about here is not necessarily poltergeist like the movie. Get into the light or get out of the light. I forgot what she said.
Originally it was run to the light, and then it was like, don't go to the light.
Right. So it's not really that. It's we're actually talking about tulpas. So tulpas are thought forms, and thought forms, that's my jam because I grew up in a house filled with thought forms. And here's the thing that we should understand is that everything is energy. I'm energy. This microphone's energy, this glass of wine. Are you guys drinking? Because I brought my drink.
Okay, before we do that, I'm having a tequila geist.
Okay.
And I'm having polter wine.
Polter wine.
I mean, I had to make it appropriate.
What about you, Jamie? What's that?
This is a pineapple poltergeist.
Oh, I love it. Okay.
It's delicious.
It's raw drinks.
There's a reason they call it spirits, right?
That's right.
And I thought it was very appropriate. I had to have spirits.
Cheers.
What was I even saying before I got all?
We are all energy.
We're all energy. So that wine is energy too. Everything is energy. And the thing about divine or spiritual energy is that it's always moving. It's never like inert. It's never just stopped in one place. It's moving. And a better way to say that is it's always creating. And so if you're coming into your life, if you're showing up in the world happy, high vibe, you got a divine self-concept, then you're creating energetically things in your life that are a match for that. But if you're like so many people who are indulgent of their lower moods, who aren't addressing all their stuff, and like we all got stuff, that is also moving and generating. And when you're in an acute state of imbalance, whether that's depression, anxiety, whether that's intoxication, God bless it, whether that's fear, like whatever it is, if you are in that state for a prolonged period of time, you're generating. And what happens with thought forms is that if you generate them without addressing the signal, they begin to evolve like anything else. And so it starts as just kind of this clump of energy. Then it starts moving around, knocking around noisy ghost. And then it starts developing personality, intellect attributes, and then it moves into autonomy. So when you have a poltergeist, something that you created that has moved into autonomy, now you have an entity that's intelligent and knows how to develop itself. And that entity is invested in the source that created it. So if Jamie, you created it because you're pissed off about somebody in perpetuity, right? If you've created that, then that poltergeist wants to be connected to that host. And the more intelligent it is through evolution, the more it begins to kind of arrange your environment and mess with your moods to keep you fueling that poltergeist. And then the last step, and I'm almost done, the last step of the process is pure autonomy, meaning this being doesn't need to stay connected to Jamie or anybody else or its host. It can go bop over to the house next door. It can attach itself to a better host who comes into the home. It can move around the cabin as it wants to. And so that's kind of the evolution of a poltergeist. So what we typically hear about with the knocking around and things moving in the house and cupboards are open, that's a poltergeist in sort of that lower developmental stage.
Okay.
You really want to stop the evolution of a negative entity or thought form around that time if you're noticing it. That's when you want to get in there, check it out. What's causing this? Is it my teenager? Is it me? And then address that.
So if you can identify that that's happening, a lot of people might not know how to stop it. I mean, obviously going in and finding out the issue and dealing with your shit, as it were. But do things like smudging help lighten that energy? But it wouldn't necessarily get rid of it, but it would start helping the process along.
Yes. And so, well, with smudging, with sage in particular, it works, but it's temporary. And so what I mean by that is that it lasts for about, I don't know, in my experience, your mileage may vary, maybe about 2 to 4 weeks.
Okay.
And what happens to the entity, whether it's a thought form or whether it's an actual spirit in the space, is that they kind of just deanimate when you use sage.
Okay.
But they're in stasis, they're in cryosleep. Okay. And so at the end of the 2 or 3 or 4 weeks, they start to reanimate and knock around. So with sage, it's something you have to do for management and maintenance. The best way to get rid of a negative entity is through intention, right? You got to understand and be aware, like, oh, something's out of alignment here. I want to fix this. And then to get into what I call your dominion. Okay, don't get me started.
Oh, no, I want you to. I love when you talk about dominion. Absolutely.
Unfold, unpack.
Okay, so what's dominion? Dominion is the energy or the vibration or the frequency of your I am. Can you dig it? Your I am. Sovereignty. And see, the trap of 3D reality is we think like this is it. It's just me in this body. It's just this life. It's my bank account. This is what it is. But that's not what it is. We're dimensionally much larger than this. And we have a higher self, for example. And that's who we really are. This is the being that Jesus was addressing, or this is the being that Jesus was mentioning when he said, you are all gods. He's talking about our godlike nature. And when we approach life from that vantage point, which is in the frequency of this dominion, every single being in our spiritual ecosystem clocks that. It's like, that's a frequency, that's divine. And no lower energy will step to it. They just won't. For example, when I started moving away from like my interest in the paranormal and, I want to go to a seance, which is cool, and into my empowered self, like my divinity, and kind of creating the life that I wanted to create, all those activities and phenomena that I was experiencing kind of went away because those ambient spirits didn't really want to mess with it, didn't really want to knock into my home, because as soon as you're knocking into my home, we have to address that. Like, I'm sovereign. This is my space. This is my kid. This is my husband and my house. And so if you enter here, I'm really intentional about that. And most entities don't want to have anything to do with that. So for somebody who's living in a situation where all this crazy stuff is happening in the house, you have to get into your sovereignty. Because, when Jesus was walking around the earth, he was stopping people and saying, demon, get out of that man and get into that herd. Demons, get out of that man and get into that herd of swine. And he was casting out energy, and he was shifting and adjusting the frequency effortlessly. And did those demons argue?
No.
They just said, please, master, no, I don't want to go into pigs. He said, go in anyway. You got to go. And they did. And that's what I'm talking about, because Jesus was just rocking his dominion. He was always embodied in this way, and he knew what he was working with. The more of us that know what we're working with, the easier it is to kind of deal with these situations. But unfortunately, most of us don't really come into our life from that vantage point.
And that's why I really wanted to have this conversation because, you know, Jamie, you can even speak to it. You know, someone who's going through something like this. I've had people off and on throughout my life talk about it. And I always knew that it wasn't, you know, like the movie. And I knew there was more to it. And that's why I love this opportunity to really get into it. It's just utterly fascinating. And the fact that we can stop it.
Mm-hmm.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
Well, and what you need to know is that which has been created in terms of thought forms can be uncreated. So it can be uncreated. And really, energy can never be uncreated exactly, but it can be uncreated to the point of like dissipation and back to sort of the, I don't know, very singular sort of energy form and then kind of cast out of your space. So you don't ever have to feel like the situation is too far gone. Like when I was growing up, I had two parents who were substance abusers, right? And my father was a physical abuser. We grew up in abject poverty. I mean, no lights, no running water at all. We were camping for most of my life. We were camping. And we were in this dark place, literally, with these dark parents, literally. And my house at the time was filled with thought forms. And I remember just looking at my father one night, and I could just see he looked possessed. And his eyes were weird, but all around him, this is kind of when my third eye was going in and out. From when I was a kid, I could always see things. But when I was a teenager, it was kind of starting to go in and out. But all around him, I could see what looked like Brillo pad energy. I don't know, it's hard to describe, but just like undulating.
Chaos almost.
Yeah. Dark, moving, kind of all around his body. And that was, in Hawaii, we call this uhane noho. That was the connected thought form spirit. And just puppeting him, like just causing him, creating a space and environment for him and supporting that environment so he could continue to be the person that he was and generate more of these. So I grew up in that. Wow. It wasn't until I got out of that I started to become conscious of my own creation ability. But even then, it took a long time.
It's a lot of work. It's a lot of work.
Yeah.
Interesting how, you mentioned, as a child, you feel and you sense these things, and we kind of step away from that as we mature. And I think it's a beautiful thing if we can come back around to that child who can feel and see again, and produce it in a positive way for self. You're saying, you got to unpack, right? You got to unpack. And, Brian and I talk about this all the time. You have to own your shit so you can get through, whatever process you're going through, whether it's a poltergeist or, we'll just unravel the whole list. But, as you're, telling your story, I have had many conversations with Brian and others that, I would love to tap into that child again. And I was sharing with Brian about the word poltergeist, the movie Poltergeist, and how kind of just, preparing for today, watching clips, I totally forgot that this reoccurring nightmare that I had came from this movie as a child, of like the hands coming up on the glass. And he knew exactly, like, as soon as I said it, he was like, oh my gosh, he was like, I know exactly what you're talking about. But how real that dream sequence was as a child. And you're talking about how these poltergeists, are energy created. We are energy. It is energy. All around us is energy. How or what tools do you feel work best? I mean, obviously we talked about sage, kind of calming the storm, but being that it's usually emotion driven or trauma driven from what it sounds like, are there specifics that you could suggest that could help our listeners if they are experiencing this?
Yes, you can definitely call in somebody who knows how to deal with energy and clear energy. And so there's a lot of people that do that kind of work, and they can either come into the space or address the person directly, or you can have somebody do it remotely. Like I do that work. I don't hire out for that work, but I do that work in my community sometimes for people who need it. I'll go in remotely and I'll start clearing things around. And that's effective. But the thing is, if the person doesn't stop, then it just comes back. It's just recreated. So you can clear it for a period of time. Also, protection, protection and protection rituals, protection techniques, these things work. They're effective. I don't prefer them personally because I'm all about the dominion. Like if I got stories, but it does work.
Oh, we're going to talk. We want stories. We want stories.
Until somebody can do that, that's a really powerful position of energy. And not everybody can just snap to grid and get into that. Until you can really embody that, things like working with Archangel Michael, he brings his sword into this space and he cuts through all of that detritus. You can also work with crystals, a lot of crystals.
Crystal Anne Comptons? Crystals.
Yeah, crystal Anne Comptons. You can use crystals and you can actually place them around your house. Now, with crystals, they come with their own innate frequency or grid of consciousness, if you will, but they also can be imbued with additional intention. So you find a crystal that will work with protection, and then you spend some time with it, praying over it, meditating with it, imbuing it with your intention for protection in your space, and then you place it around your home. I like to place these types of things like at windows, around doors, like above the door, just to keep all negative energy from coming in. Now, I'll only do that once I've sent it out, because you don't want to keep them in, like they can't get out because they can't move through the door or the portal. Once you clear the home, you can just put the crystals around and grid it so that nothing negative can come back in. But again, if the call's coming from inside the house, if Crystal Anne Compton is generating the thought form, well, it really doesn't matter because I'm going to continue to do that. The best thing to do is to deal with your stuff. Now, I have a spiritual academy and we have many programs and we have thousands of students, but every single student that I've ever had, the first thing, and they always come into the programs like, I want to open my third eye and I want to talk to dead people. And that's cool. And that does happen. But let's start with your bullshit. Let's start with your stuff, because that stuff is taking up space. I call it the bodies within the body. Like everything's energy. Your beliefs are energy. Your false beliefs are energy. Your habits, your programming, that stuff you're carrying around that your parents said to you when you were 7 that wounded you so deeply and created the person you are. Like you're carrying actual physical energetic stuff. And so you've got to deal with that and you have to clear that. And you can do this in many ways. You can do this through therapy, analysis. You can do this through self-development, reading books, filling your brain with soul food. But the best way to do that, the best way to clear out that stuff is to bring in the light. And the light shines into the darkness, and the darkness cannot overcome it. That's the nature of light. And in scripture like that, what light means is spirit. Light means God, really.
Yeah, absolutely.
And for us as humans, the closest approximation we can get to light is love. Okay, love. And everybody has access to that. So what I'm saying here is, if you can put yourself into high vibration experiences of love or bliss or joy in such a way that you're embodying this, like I'm really feeling so much gratitude right now, or I'm really just loving my baby. I love her so much. And you think about that and it fills you up. Or I really love my doggies and they're just so precious to me. And you can feel your heart start to open. That's light. The more you fill with that, and the more you intentionally put yourself into experiences of that, the more the darkness cannot overcome it and really literally starts to shuffle out of your body, mind, and spirit, creating space for new energy. So that's a high vibrational living, really. Vibration modification is something.
I love that. That's powerful. We have been talking, our first several episodes have been about manifestation, about gratitude, and really raising that energy and keeping it as high as you can. And just yesterday, we were talking about love energy and how as we age, what seemed important isn't. And, having 1,000 friends certainly is not important. And the few friends that you keep in your circle have to be high vibrational love energy, or I can't have it. And I find the older I get, the more aware I'm becoming, the more those other people just sort of have made their way out. And I don't know if you remember, Crystal, but several years ago, you and I were talking and you had mentioned you felt some stuff and you said you have a lot of shit you need to deal with. you called me right out on it, and I had to go in and do a lot of work, and I mean I'm still working. And when my mother became ill and subsequently passed, that was a huge light moment for me. It was, when I knew Reiki was something that I wanted to do, and that I've been putting off for years. I told Jamie when I was 16, I first had an experience with Reiki. I literally walked into a store in Ocean City, New Jersey called A Touch of Spirit, just to see what it was about. And this lady came over to me and said, I want to do Reiki on you. Like and then I was here for it. I was here for all of it, honey. And I kept putting it away. And it would come back to the back of my head every now and then. And I just pushed it away. And then through the work, it started to come back again. And then with my mother's situation, I got involved in it again. And now I find I am truly happiest when I feel love all the time. And then not just for myself, but for others. And just, those bad days just aren't happening because I don't have room for that negative energy. So there is something to be said about that. That is very powerful stuff.
100%. And the thing about you're an energy healer. And what the light does is it really crafts and molds the instrument or the vessel of you. So the more you work with love and high vibration energy, which is kind of, a buzzword in our community, it really just means light and God energy. The more you work with that, the more it crafts the vessel for the healing. And so the healing moves through you and is given to someone else. But the thing about healers is that they are usually called to the work because spirit seeks to heal them too. There is no healer who's already 100% healed. We're all in process.
Yes.
And so healers are usually called to the work because there's something within themselves that they're also wanting to heal. I'm sorry about I keep going in and out of focus. Let me fix that really fast. Do you mind?
Oh, of course not.
Okay.
Of course
I just
not.
thought it was your energy because it was every time you waved your hand, it
know.
was trying to refocus. I was like, all right.
It's my ding dong camera. Sorry about that.
Well, it's so interesting though, because watching you, I see such amazing energy around you. I mean, it is wow.
Do I got my peeps here? My peeps with me? Yeah.
There are 4 energies that I can feel. 4. There might be more, but there are 4 that are very strong. And it's like, I almost sort of feel them standing behind you with pride.
Aww.
2 of them have their hands kind of on you. And it's like, this is ours. She is ours, and we are proud of her, and she is doing, and it's overwhelming me. I mean, I'm going to get a little, it literally, it's coming at me. It's woof.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, it's beautiful. Beautiful.
Well, with guides, they kind of rotate around us depending on what direction we're going in. But over here on this side, I've always got my big man Metatron. He's always with me. Like he's just always doing his sacred geometry and his attunements. Like he's fantastic. But then I have like different people. Like my mom will come in. My mom is a great facilitator for my work. Like we were really close in life. And she was woo-woo like I was, but she really never got to kind of actualize because of the life that she led. But in death, she's like all about it. She's
That's
like,
amazing. That is
I'll
so
take
awesome.
care of all these dead people for you, and we'll just make sure they come one at a time. So she organizes energy, and she really helps me. My father, who passed away many, many moons ago, like 95, he was really quiet for a long, long time, which was fine because he was I had to deal with my stuff around that. I really wasn't open to him coming up and rolling. In fact, he would come through other mediums who would reach out to me as recently as like a year or 2 ago to try and get a message to me. And I'm just like, okay, Dad, whatever. But now I'm kind of open to, because he's been gone for, I can't do math. Is that 25 years? Something like that.
Yeah, 26, I think.
So he's coming around now, and he's got a lot of interesting wisdom with him because he was a really smart person and he was really spiritually inclined. It's just that he was an addict, and he could never get himself out of that. But he loved the things of spirit too. And to your point, Jamie, about children, see, my first experience, my first memory that I ever had was like not of my mom or my dad. I grew up in Hawaii, right? So it wasn't the beach. It was of like tree people. There were 2 people who used to sit out on a branch of the tree that was outside of my bedroom. And in the middle of the day, my mom would send me into the bedroom And I would sit in this shaft of sunlight and I would talk to the tree people. Now, telepathically, I did this, but that just seemed very normal. And they were, see, the thing about elementals and fairies and stuff is they're not all light and love. Sometimes they're like, you're messing with this land and I'm pissed off about it, you know? And so they kind of looked like, what are those called? Like, what is the being in Narnia, Mr. Tumnus, like half
Yeah.
goat, half human
Yeah.
or something? And so they were completely naked, and it was kind of weird. And they were just always out there on the branch. And one day I went outside. I was probably 2.5 or 3 years old to go find them and talk to them a little more intimately. And I got lost because I couldn't find them in the trees. But that was just, it was always a part of my awareness that there's other things happening in the world. And when I went to my parents and I started talking about these tree people, my parents both were psychic. So my father didn't say, oh, you know, that's demonic or that's just your imagination. That's your imaginary friend. Nor did my mother. In fact, they kind of equipped me like to deal with that. So that's so important with children. Like when we validate and honor that they're actually having legitimate experiences because they are, we are able to engender further experiences for them. But what happens is around the age of 6 or 7, the pineal gland, the third eye, the gland of the third eye, starts to shift and change. And the older we get, it begins to calcify. So by the time we're 20, this is super sporadic, our ability to perceive into the world of spirit. By the time we're 30, and I'm just becoming 30 next year.
Yes. Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. I know.
I actually thought he was 27,
Well,
but I'm a little
I get
shocked
that
to
a
hear
lot.
that 30's coming. You've blown my mind yet again.
Yeah, I know. Benjamin Button. Anyway, so by the time you're 30, like that pineal gland is offline, and 40s, 50s, it's dormant. And so unless you're actively working with the energy of the pineal gland and the third eye, it's more difficult to even sleep because sleep and melatonin regulate. Melatonin is in the third eye and it regulates sleep. So all that is to say is that unless we actually work with our children and encourage them in this way and give them the tools that they need to work with their gifts, it just goes away. You know, just by the time they're in their teens, it kind
It's
of
like use it or lose it, essentially.
Yeah.
And when you're at the point where you've lost it, when you're my age, which is I'm going to be 40 soon.
What? Shush your mouth. No.
But you know, being over 50, I find that, well, I mean, how long has it been since you and I have been friends, Crystal? I mean, it's been 5, 6.
Yeah, something like that. I
Ish.
think.
And I've always been, but that period helped me sort of reattune myself. And then the last couple of years I've been doing a lot of work and trying to get my shit together. But I found that it was more challenging because I didn't use it daily, weekly, even sometimes not even monthly. And it was a lot harder. And, you know, you gave me exercises to try to, you know, open, and I'm sitting there and I'm like, how does she do it? And I'm like, oh, because she does it.
Right.
And to your point, if we get our children or any young person in your life that shows this type of ability and we work with them, and, you know, I just think we're setting them up for a better experience for a lifetime. And you don't want to be like me and be older and be like, this is work. It's like going to the gym. You are training a muscle. It's crazy.
It is
crazy.
like it is.
And I don't like the gym.
Nor do I. But if you don't work with it, then it atrophies. That's just how it works.
Yeah, I don't like that word. I don't like that word.
I wanted to ask you, Jamie, because we haven't really met and talked, but so do you have like an intuitive background, or like when you were a kid, did you see energy and all that stuff? Like, how does that work for you?
It's interesting because as you were talking about your experience, the first thing that popped into my mind was my imaginary friend as a child. And then you said like 5, 6, and I'm like, I'm gonna have to ask when that farewell happened. And the more that I think about it, I could probably, if I was an artist, I could probably draw Kelly for you right now. She had a place at the dinner table. if people went to sit in that space, I would like screech, like, you're going to sit on Kelly. My mom would tell me that I'd be in the back seat of a car, of the car, and like screech that she was going to hit something and nothing was there.
She was gonna run over Kelly.
Well, no, Kelly was in the back seat with
Oh,
me.
okay. Like, we can't kill Kelly.
No. I would say the best introduction to this realm was ever since I was little. My mom told me that I was different, and she knew that I was different because when I was born, I had the veil covering half of my face. And I think, like your mom, my mother's very intuitive, but hasn't been able to express it to her fullest in her lifetime at this point. But very intuitive, and would always tell me, my energy as a child was very noticeable. So like Brian was just mentioning about himself, I feel like I went through life and that calcification obviously occurred, and I went through a divorce. I went through a big event, and I made space. And once that space was there, I started to reintroduce myself to myself, if that makes sense.
Yep.
And I went through massage therapy. Brian and I met at a school that taught massage therapy.
Okay.
He saw me through, my goodness, a lot of that space making, if you will. And it wasn't until I think I left Florida and moved back home and reconnected with the person that I am today did I feel like my frequency is vibrating at the closest where I feel like it should be. I am still learning. I am anxiously awaiting my Reiki Master training at the end of this month. And I feel like between massage, that you were talking about, healers needing to heal themselves, I really feel like I connected with that statement as soon as it came out of your mouth. I think I went to massage therapy to heal myself and didn't realize that that's what I was doing until I was actually in the process of the career. It's 100% truth.
Right.
100%.
Wow.
Yeah, that's a lot.
No, it's awesome though. I love to hear it. And I've had to create space through divorce a couple of times myself in this life. But I mean, I was never afraid to take stock and make a move. That's the thing about spirit is when you're connected to spirit, you'll feel that embodied inspiration, like move here next, do this now. Most people, they hesitate or they don't listen to that or they don't do it. And then they get stuck kind of in a pattern that becomes almost karmic. But I've never really been afraid to move except my body during exercise. I'm not afraid. I'm just like resistant to it. I've really never been afraid to be like, boom, let's try something different. Or I feel that spirit. Yes, here we go. And because of that, I've been able to create a lot of things, build a lot of different things that, have moved me along in my path. So I really love to hear that, because I think people often, they demonize process. Like, I've got to go through this process in order to get to the other side and fine tune myself. And I feel ashamed because I'm in process and I'm a spiritual person, but you've got to do that. And the thing is, I think the most powerful teaching and the most powerful healing comes from people who are in process, because they're in it right now. They're clearing, they're onboarding, they're dismissing, they're getting techniques, they're finding out what works for them. And if you can get someone who's in process in that way, in that moment, you can learn so much. So those are the most powerful people. But
I agree with that. I think that's one of the reasons why we wanted to start our podcast, because we go through so much and we talk. Like, she and I have these kinds of conversations all the time. And I'm like, one day I called her and I'm like, we need to do a podcast. and that's just it. We need to do this. And she's probably like, what? But we talked about it. And I said, no, I really want to do this and just make it, we are just two friends that have been friends for, over a decade. And we've been through a lot of stuff together. We are still learning. We're still growing. We're spiritual people. And why not share what works for us with others?
Yes.
You know, and I believe fully and wholeheartedly, and that's why I love, Crystal, what you do, because I believe if we know, we should, and I mean by that, help others. You know, we're all in this life journey together, and why not? You know, I kind of picture sort of, you know, walking in an open field, heading somewhere. I may be here, you may be there, someone may be wherever, but we're all kind of going together. And if we just reach out our hands and grab those people right next to us, and they grab the people next to them, like that, you know, what was that shampoo commercial, and so on and so on. But let's pull everybody forward. We're all going to the same place.
Right.
You know, we just have different ways of getting there, but let's do it together. That's kind of why we do what we do.
I love that. And the thing, you know, you mentioned age and, you know, don't wait until you're my age. But the thing is that comes with age is like, you just don't give
Yeah.
you know what I mean? I've got like a 25-year plan. Like if I live as long as the average person, I got 25 years or whatever it is, 27, however many years it is. And so what can I do with my life in that time? Like how many people can I meet when I'm walking down the street? How many people can I influence? What kind of content can I put out in the world that's authentic? See, because when I started here, when I started putting myself out, I was like really concerned about my hair and my, you know, it's like, does this look good? Is the frame good? Now I'm like, there's one of my most popular videos on YouTube. I'm literally snotting out of my nose. I've just had this devastating news. I'm in my Jeep and God says, film it. Tell people what you're going through. And I'm like, I don't want to film this. I look terrible. No makeup. My hair's, you know, my white girl fro. Terrible. But I did it. I said yes to that. And I shared what I was going through in process. And in that video, I come to such a stark realization about spirit at the end of it. And I uploaded it, and it was like one of my most viewed and interacted with videos, because I'm just here to be authentic. And I'm not here to say that I know everything. Like I do not. But what I do know that's eternal is helpful to somebody else who hasn't even thought of that yet. Yes. And the energy that I can embody speaks for itself. See, because energy talks, energy communicates. And speaking of clearing spaces, remember like poltergeist thought forms, kind of going back full circle. I have a friend in Hawaii. She is a kahu. She's a priestess. And she goes in and she's hired to clear gymnasiums and auditoriums and homes and things of that nature. All she does is fill up with frequency, right? Get into that, I'm feeling so much gratitude, and then go stand in the middle of the auditorium. That's it. The frequency, the energy takes care of the rest. The light shines into the darkness. And so for me,
really got chills.
If I just get in front of people, or if I just allow myself to be available to spirit, somebody's going to feel that. And like energy will dislodge. So if you're in pain and my light, if I'm holding light, is shining into your pain, you're going to make a choice around that. You're going to maybe feel uncomfortable and like, I don't like this chick. She's making me feel uncomfortable. I don't know why. Or you're going to be available to that, and the energy jostles stuff around, starts bubbling to the surface, and you can release it. Like just being a light in the world is what I'm saying. Going to your local Starbucks and being joy and being nice and being kind and being like, I have come into this room to bless this room. There is no other reason for me to be here. A Course in Miracles. Mm-hmm. Live by that. It's powerful. So anyway.
I know, you gave me chills.
I know.
Chills.
Yeah.
Spirit. Yeah, no, I love talking about it.
Like you were the first person that I remember, Jamie, I said, well, we want to get guests at some point. I said, I don't know if she'll do it. Well, not that you wouldn't do it, but you're so busy. And I'm like, but I want Crystal, we have to get her. And then of course I'm like hesitating, like, I want to ask, but I know she's so busy and I don't want her to feel like she has to. Then I ask and she's like, I want to do it.
No, I was like, I don't really go on Instagram a ton. I mean, I'm like, oh, but I did. I was going and I saw you guys up live, and that was the energy talking. I'm like, what are these two doing? Like, it looks fun. It looks juicy and awesome. So, you know, obviously I popped in, and it's just so great. So I love that you're doing it, and I can feel it when you do it. And anything I can do for you, Brian, I'm going to do it.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. Yes, I will.
See, look at all the love just going around.
Yes. Well, I mean, Crystal was a catalyst for me. And how that started was I stumbled upon a video on YouTube and I was like, who is this Crystal Anne Compton? So then I started looking at other videos and I'm like, I need to follow her. I need to find her. And I sought her out and I found, I believe it was your Facebook group.
Mhm.
And I started commenting on things and we started chatting back and forth. And I loved what I was feeling. And then before you knew it, we were like Facebook, like official Facebook friends. And then, you know, numbers were exchanged and things happened. And I have learned, still learn so much from you, but just the gift of your friendship has been a light. And like when my mom passed, you know, we hadn't talked a whole lot and you were there in that moment. And it didn't matter if you were physically there or what. In that moment, you said, I'm holding space and I'm sending you love. And I felt it. And it was just, you know, same thing with you, Jamie. I mean, you were there the whole time. And it's just, it's such a gift and it's such a blessing. And now to sit here with my two favorite people having a chat is just, it's a little overwhelming for me, I must say.
Wow.
I don't feel like I'm my normal self because I'm trying to keep it from being like, ah!
No, it's awesome. It's awesome. Anytime you guys want to have me, like I'll be here just talking. I'll talk.
Oh yeah, that's what I love. Cocktails and conversations. That is what this is.
I love
What
it.
it is.
I love
What
it.
it is. So,
Sip on it.
Crystal, we talked a little bit about, you know, who you are, what you do, and about Light Shine. But do you want to share? Because we did talk about your course that's coming up on the 18th. But if there's, I would love for you to, you know, let the listeners know a little bit more about you and what you do, and you know where else we can find you and all your goodies.
Oh gosh. Do you have a pen and paper? It's so much. I'll try to condense it. Like the thing
Write it down, Jamie.
The thing I'm excited about right now, well, there's a couple of things. First and foremost, Light Shine Spiritual Academy. That's the academy that I co-founded with my friend, Trisha Carr, my best friend. She's an angel. And we offer a lot of programs, but one of the things we're offering right now is a development circle. So it's kind of based on the old-timey spiritualist development circle. Well, those were typically seances, but it was a place you could go to just give and receive psychic readings or intuitive readings. And because we have so many programs, we wanted to create an infrastructure where the students could kind of funnel into that and continue to practice. But it's also available to anybody else as well. So we do 2 circles a month. They're like 2 hours a pop. And there's the first part of the circle. You put yourself, well, if you can volunteer to put yourself in the middle of the whole circle and everybody reads you, which is cool because you're getting awesome psychic readings from a bunch of intuitives. Then we kind of split up and you have an opportunity to read somebody else and get another reading while you're split up. So I think that's like $22 a month for like 4 hours of just fantastic practice. So that's something I'm offering. You can go to lightshineacademy.com, go to courses or programs, and you'll figure out how to get and register for that. But the other thing I'm really excited about is I just launched another podcast because I just can't stop talking. And this one is called Life Magnetics. And see, this is another thing that Spirit did to, like, it bubbled up and said, why don't you start teaching on this, like, consistently? Because people want to hear it. Why don't you start getting into the works of Neville Goddard, of Joseph Murphy, of Napoleon Hill, of like cosmic philosophers and thought leaders who taught about divine mind and concept and how to create your reality. Like Esther Hicks does this. And many people have done this, but it's just so juicy and everybody needs to know it. And so when I talk about this stuff, like how to shift your life or how to look at some of the works of these masters, if you will, and then transform that and apply that to the life, like I just get so excited. So I started this podcast about a month ago, and I also created a Facebook group. It's called Life Magnetics. And we're going to do consciousness experiments. Like, I don't know if you heard about the consciousness experiment that Art Bell did, like back in, I want to say 1999 or 2000. Probably not. I'm a geek. Do you know who Art Bell is? Do you know who Art Bell is, Jamie?
No, please tell me.
Oh my God. He was the host of Coast to Coast, and he did it for many, many years. And I just love Art Bell. May he rest in peace. But anyway, I think it was 99. He decided to do a consciousness experiment with his audience. And at the time, you're talking millions of listeners. And what they all intended together as consciousnesses was a visitation from aliens. And they all agreed upon it. You know, the Bible says, if you and I agree on something, our Father is compelled to move. So they all agreed, aliens. And I think within 2 to 4 days, the Phoenix Lights happened. So do you know what the Phoenix Lights are? That
Oh my.
huge UFO visitation. It
Mhm.
scared the heck out of Art because he realized, whoa, this works. Like when we join our intention together, it just amplifies and we can do anything. And then, of course, there was that meditation a couple of years ago, and there was like a seismic earthquake.
Yeah.
So
Yes.
I want to do stuff like that. Like I want to agree upon things with people. Like, can we agree upon some water for Nevada? Maybe like those people are having a hard time. Can we
Right.
agree upon some peace in the United States of America? That'd be awesome. Can we agree upon what do we want to create? And we do it together. So
Mhm.
that group is kind of intended for cosmic mind, big brain stuff, plus experiments in consciousness. I love it. It's Life Magnetics. If you want to listen to a podcast, if you want to listen to me, you can find me anywhere under Life Magnetics with Crystal Anne Compton.
That is so
Also, my
awesome.
website, which is janky right now, I wouldn't go to it, but it's crystallannecompton.com. I'm in the process of upgrading it. I have a YouTube, Crystal Anne Compton. Just search for me. I've got 900 videos. Again, talk a lot. I'm on Instagram, Crystal Anne Compton. I'm on Facebook, Light Shine Lab. That's my 10,000 member community. And of course, Life Magnetics. I'm all over the place. I've been around the world and
Yeah. It's not that you can't find your way, you found your way.
That's right.
And
Exactly.
folks, it's Crystal Anne, ANNE.
Don't forget the E.
Do not forget the
Don't
E.
forget the E.
Please don't forget the E. Because one time when I saw a video and then I wanted to find something else, I was typing in with no E and I'm like, wait a minute. And then I had to dig a little bit, but I found you. And I'm like, no, we can never forget the E.
Don't forget the E. I think there's a Crystal Anne Compton who's a realtor in Georgia or something. So you might lose your way. But if you put that E in there, you will find me.
Yeah. You don't want to go to Georgia to find her because she's
No,
not
I'm
there.
not selling real estate.
Yeah, no. Well, maybe spiritual real estate.
Indeed.
Oh,
Indeed. I
see what
love
he
it.
does there.
You
See
too.
that?
Yes.
I have loved this. I want to talk for 9 hours about,
Me
I
too.
told Crystal before, you could read a phone book to me and I would just be like,
Oh.
I love to listen to you talk.
Well,
Yes.
thank you. I
You have so
appreciate
much to
that.
share and so much to
Oh.
give. And I so appreciate your time with us.
Of course. I'm
Thank
so happy
you.
to be here. No, I've enjoyed every minute of it. I hope you invite me on an Instagram Live.
Yeah, well, we tried because I
listen.
thought you were trying to join, but you wanted to shower instead.
Well, I was
That
joining you
was
in cocktails.
amazing.
I was like, I will join you with a cocktail, but like,
Like I
nobody
was
wants
so
to see me.
excited. I'm like, oh my gosh, Joyce, come on.
No,
And then
I will join
nothing.
you. Sorry. I'm like, I really should shower. I look terrible. But I will definitely, I will definitely pop up with you guys. It's fun. And I love talking about the things of spirit too. And I think so many people want to hear it and so many people want to be a part of that. So
Yes.
I'm in.
Cool. Love it. All right. Well, everyone, thank you so much for joining us. And again, this is Cocktails and Conversations with your hosts from the Don't Smudge the Small Stuff podcast, Jamie and Brian, with very special guest, Crystal Anne with an E, Compton. Thank you so much, Crystal. You, I think, are going to be like Hollywood Squares or like Match Game. You're going to be our Brett Summers.
I don't know what
Brett
that
Summers,
means.
so Brett Summers, I mean, this was the 60s and 70s, but Brett Summers I don't even know who she was. She was just on that show and she was funny. Or was that JP Morgan? Now I can't remember which one it was, but she was like, every time she would come on, I would just light up because she was so fun and engaging and dynamic. And so they invited her back all the time. And I'm like, that's our Crystal.
All right. Can I be in the
We'll have you all
center
the
square?
time.
That's
Yes.
what it is.
Well,
It's
of
the
course, you're the
center
center
square.
square.
I'm into it. All right. All right.
Yeah, we'll bookend you. No big deal.
Yeah.
All right. So thank you so much for joining us. Thank you, everyone. And we will talk soon. Blessings.